Welcome to the North Shore Performance Podcast, where we take a deep dive into health and fitness for everyday people and the athlete in all of us. I am your host, Jake Wirtz, and with me is my best friend and co-host, Tanner Schenkel. Together, we take an honest look at fitness and discuss how anybody can improve their lives by adopting a healthy lifestyle. All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of the North Shore Performance Podcast. Today, we're going to continue with our favorite exercise series. Today, it's going to be another mock draft, another draft. Tanner, what are we doing today?
We're drafting back. So all those guys out there that want that Dorito back, what C-Bun's known for, the Christmas tree, whatever you want to call it, that nice thick lats, the thing that makes you look big, even if you're wearing a t-shirt. The back is kind of its own beast, and I think this is going to be a fun draft.
Can you explain the Dorito back? Because I understood that, but if you're a newbie, what does that mean exactly? Because that's kind of a weird thing just on its own.
When you look at a big guy and you look at his back, it's like an upside down triangle. And a lot of us are extremely food driven, and when you look at it, you're like, it kind of looks like a Dorito. So that's where the term Dorito back was formed. I could be wrong, but it makes sense to me. And in the end, that's all that matters. You guys are listening to us, not anyone else. So in the end, our word is gold. So,
well, I have never heard of that before, Dorito back. So that threw me through a loop. All right. So with the last draft, Tanner went first with the chest draft. By the way, if you haven't seen that video, go back and watch it and let us know who had the better team. But today, I think I'm going to start with the first overall pick, if that's all right with you, Tanner.
Yeah, that's only fair.
All right. And with the first pick in the back mock draft, I'm going to select the king of all lifts, the deadlift.
Yeah.
Now, I think this is a clear and obvious 101 number one overall pick in the back draft. And the reason for that is because it's really an all-in-one movement, and this could be thrown in a couple different muscle groups. It's not just back, but it's going to hit your entire back, your low back, your upper back, your traps are going to feel it. And I really don't feel like anything has helped my back development as much as heavy deadlifts.
Yeah, no. And like you talk old G bodybuilders, that's what they talk about. Ronnie Coleman, he used to deadlift a crap ton and one of the best bodybuilders of all time, and he had a great back. And I mean, that just shows you heavy deadlifts are a great back builder. So I respect that. Pick 101. That's exactly what I would have done. So since you went that route, I'm going to go a little different here. And probably the next second back exercise would be the bent over row for me. I like to start most workouts with the compound movement. And yeah, you want to try to take your legs out as much as possible. But you're still kind of get them involved. I just feel like the bent over row would be the next route I would go. If I'm building a back workout and I don't do a deadlift in it, it's some kind of row, and I really like the bent over row. It really carries over directly into the deadlift and also helps with your bench too. It's the antagonist movement for the bench. So that would be my pick at 102, bent over row.
And we're doing a snake draft, which again, if you don't understand what that is, basically we go back and forth like a normal draft, but the second person gets to double up, and then, I get to double up and we go back and forth like that. So Tanner has the second and the third pick with this structure, just to make it fair.
Yep. And my next pick, so we kind of worked on creating a thick back with a row movement. Now we're going to work on widening the back, and my next pick is going to be the lat pull down.
Okay. See, that is a great pick. And I think when everybody thinks about doing a back workout, this is probably the first thing that people think about, really. And this is one of the first things that everybody learns in the gym, because it doesn't take a lot of skill necessarily, right? You just hop on the machine and you pull it down. There is a skill to it, obviously, to maximize and optimize the movement, but it really is one of the easier back movements to learn, because there's a big mind muscle connection component to working your back.
Yep. You really got to focus on the squeeze. And that's something I'm like starting to like really figure out. I got one of those sweet sets of lat pull down bars that you have your
Mhm.
hands outside instead of over like this, and I can really feel that
Yep, and they're in
contraction on my
neutral
back.
position.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's like something I never really felt until I got those. So if you see those at your gym, definitely try them out because it like forces you to contract your lats in that movement, which it's kind of hard to get that mind muscle connection without something like that to force you into that contraction zone.
One of the tips that I heard that was really helpful for me when it came to lat pull downs and even with rows and things like that, any kind of back movement, besides the deadlift, I guess, is to when you're hanging onto the bar or anything like that, really focus on pulling through your ring finger. And what that does is it kind of forces you to disengage your forearms and your biceps a little bit. And once you take those two things out of a back exercise, it's purely your lats doing the work. You know what I mean? Your lats and your rhomboids. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. You know, their forearms take over, their biceps take over, and they don't really get the right contraction. And they're moving the weight, but they're not executing the lift.
Yep. I've also heard something similar with the ring finger, or you make like the pistol with your fingers or like the loser sign, and it takes your bicep out of it and it
Yep.
makes it solely a back movement. There's lots of different things. It's kind of interesting how your fingers play a game in what muscles are activated and what aren't when you're doing certain movements. Kind of cool. So where are you going with your
Yeah, there's a lot of
202?
yeah, there is a lot of cues that help out with different exercises, but I think back has like the most directly helpful cues. All right, so with my second pick, I'm going to go with the superior option as far as the vertical pull goes. And I kind of like to build my back workouts this way anyway. A vertical pull, a horizontal pull, as you'll find out. But my number one choice for a vertical pull, my second choice in this draft would be the pull up slash chin up. And as great as a lat pull down is, I just think the pull up and chin up is more effective. Obviously, there is a greater barrier to entry if you can't do a pull up or if you can't do many pull ups. Obviously, you know, the lat pull down is a great alternative. But if you can crank out even like 2 or 3 on a consistent basis, just, you know, you don't have to do a ton of reps. But if you did like 10 sets of 2 or 3, now you've got 20 reps, 30 reps in. And if you do that alongside some other lifts like a bench or an incline bench or even your regular back exercises, or anytime you walk by the pull-up bar, just crank out a few, you know, and really build that wide back. And it'll also help develop your grip strength, your shoulder mobility. But I just think that's one of the best overall back exercises out there, bar none.
Yeah, no, the pull-up's great. There's a lot of different ways you can make it easier to do if you can't do a full one. You can have bands, you could use the assisted pull-up machines. It's a great all-around movement. I just decided black pull down is the way I was gonna go. You can kind of up the volume. But I respect your pick at 202.
Yeah, like I said, nothing wrong with either of those. I'm glad they were both high in the draft. So my third pick in the back draft is going to be a variation of one of Tanner's picks. He went with the bent over row. I'm going to go with the pendlay row, which is a variation of the bent over row, but instead of standing up at the bar and then hinging at the hip and rowing like that, what you're going to do is you're going to approach the bar on a deadlift platform, most likely, and you're going to hinge over and you're going to pull it straight from the ground as a row. And it's designed to be a wider barbell row. So your hands are on the ring part of the barbell. So you're going to be a wider grip. And really all you're doing is you're hinging over and you're rolling that bar, dropping it to the ground, reset, row it, drop it to the ground. And every time you reset that, it's supposed to be an explosive movement. It's a compound movement. And I have felt that this has really helped my bench development actually, because it's helped me develop a wider back. And I really like to use it, like you said, as an antagonistic movement with my bench. And it's at the gym that I train at, the deadlift platform is right in front of the bench. So it's really easy for me to go 1-2, 1-2 back and forth.
Yeah, that's a great pick. If you didn't touch on the assistance with the bench, I was going to. But I think we both use bent over row or the pendlay row very similar in that aspect. And I like how you talked about bumping your grip out to the ring, because a lot of guys they want to go a certain grip. But if you're trying to help your bench get better, it's a good idea to kind of do the same grip you would use with your bench, because then it's gonna use the antagonist back muscles and kind of same width that your bench goes to. So nice touch there.
And I think it's really important to play around with your grip for all of these as well. Like a lat pull down, you can go super wide and then you can come right back inside. You can go underhand, overhand. There's so many different variations. You can do the same exercise. And as long as you could do 10 reps on a lat pull down. And if you did a different grip every single time, or every 2 sets, you did a different grip, you could hit almost your entire back doing that. And you'd get a great workout in just by those little tweaks.
Yep, I agree. So my next pick, I'm going to do something I started doing a couple months ago and I really like it. I know we talked about like compound movements and stuff. This one's pretty isolates the back, because it takes your legs out of it. And this one is the seal row. So not a lot of gyms are going to have access to this. I do it with 2 plyo boxes. I put my bench up on there. And then I have the row in between the boxes and I roll that way. Because you're laying on your bench. So here's your bench. This is you across and your barbell's underneath the bench and you're rowing up like this. And since your legs are up, you have no leg drive to help you propel the weight up. So it is all back. That is kind of a humbling exercise that you think you can roll a lot until you do something like that. And you realize how much your legs actually help you. But I think that one has really helped my back development personally. Obviously, addition with those fancy lat pull down bars I got. But the seal row, I love that. If it wasn't such a pain in the butt to kind of set up and stuff, I would do it almost every single back day. I just only could do it when I have an extra 5-10 minutes to make sure I can get everything set for it. So, but that would be my pick at 302 would be the seal row.
Yeah, and I really like that exercise. Also, you said it takes your legs out of it, but the other thing it does is it takes your momentum out of it. And we've all seen these guys at the gym, and we've all done it with like shrugs and rows and things like that. You get a little bit of momentum involved, It's not, you try to control for it. You try not to swing too much. But what that bench does when you lay down on it, it takes that completely out of the game. You can't use your legs. You can't really, jerk the bar towards you. It's just, your hands that are the meat hooks in that situation, just your meat hooks and, your lats. That's all you can really pull with. So like you said, it's a very humbling exercise. It's going to drastically be, the weight is going to be drastically lower on that than a regular barbell row, as you well know. But it is a very worthwhile movement, and I highly recommend it to everybody who hasn't tried it. It's not a very common lift, but it's a great one.
Yep. One word of caution: be careful with your fingers if you're doing it like I do with the plyo boxes. Some gyms will have seal rows, so they're just higher benches. But I've crushed my fingers a couple times because I got them too close to the plyo boxes when I'm rowing. So be safe out there when you're trying some crazy stuff. But I actually really like it, and so definitely recommend it. My next pick, the 401. So I kind of went. We have bent over row, so back thickness. Then we have lat pull down, that's back width, and then we went back to a row that is so more back thickness. And we're gonna go back to a pull down, so kind of swapping back between vertical and horizontal pulls. And we're going, or sorry, vice versa, horizontal then vertical. We're gonna do it with a single arm cross body lat pull down. So this one I started doing, I saw a bodybuilder do it, and I can really feel that contraction in my lat when I do it. So you're almost position your body so the pull down is on the opposite side of your arm, the single arm attachment, and you're pulling through across your body and then down, kind of driving your elbow to your hip. And I can really feel that contraction when I do it, and you kind of get that nice stretch when you go across your body. So I really like that workout. And I'm kind of looking when I do a back workout, a lot of that is trying to get that contraction to happen, because I can feel like I'm getting the blood pumping into my lats or just whatever area of my back I'm working when I can get that contraction there.
Nice. Yeah, that's a unique one. I don't see a lot of guys doing that in the gym as well, but I like that it's an isolated movement. A lot of these are not isolated. They're going to be more of a whole body movement. We've already used a lot of barbells and things like that so far in this draft. So I like that you introduced that a little bit to isolate your lats instead. So I have my two last picks coming up here, and I'm kind of stuck. But I think what I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with the hammer row. And what that is it's a machine based lift. And I don't usually like to recommend a lot of machine based lifts, but I really like this one. It's the one where you're sitting upright and the handles are out in front of you, and they're each individual, like you move them one at a time, and you just pull it back to you with your chest up on the pad. And I really like that because you can really do one at a time. You're kind of isolating it like we just talked about. And if you do one, you can kind of let the machine pull you forward a little bit, and you get a really nice stretch in your lats, and then you can slowly contract it. And you don't have to use a lot of weight. I like to do it at the end of a back workout and just really get a nice stretch at the end of my lats and slowly contract it back. And then I switch sides and I do the same exact thing with that. I prefer that personally, and this is going to sound like heresy to some old school guys, but I prefer that over like a dumbbell row. And the reason being is I just feel like you can get a lot of momentum involved. I find it personally difficult. This goes back to the mind muscle connection thing. I find it personally difficult to really get a good contraction consistently with a dumbbell row. That's a lift that I've just never really had a lot of success with. And I try it over and over again, and it's just not one that I like. So I really prefer the hammer row in that regard.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I think your reasoning connects the dots, and if you didn't have that good of a reason to back it up, I think you'd probably get roasted by some old school people. But I think your argument makes 100% sense. So I have nothing to say against it.
And I'm not trying to devalue dumbbell rows. I think they are an incredibly effective exercise, and a lot of people get a lot of value out of them. Maybe that's just something that I've never really received the proper training on or proper cues on, but that's just a lift that I don't have a lot of value in personally. But moving on. So my last pick is going to be a little bit different, and I'm going to go with the band pull aparts. So this is kind of this is something I like to use a lot when I'm warming up for my bench, but it's also great for the end of a back workout, kind of like we were just talking about. You take a band, a resistance band, put it out in front of you kind of like this, and you just pull that thing apart as far as you can. And just doing that, even without the band, all I'm doing is squeezing my back together. And really, they tell you to squeeze the pencil with your back muscles, like when you do lat pull downs and stuff like that. You do the same thing with that. You squeeze the pencil behind you, you hold that for a one or two count, and you slowly bring it back together. And then you do the exact same thing. You can do that for a lot of reps, not with a ton of resistance. You don't need a ton of resistance, but you're going to feel your back just light up if you do those before a bench workout, at the end of a back workout. And it'll also really help your posture. I know we have a lot of people who sit down for a living, and they sit at a desk all day for school or something like that. And we have this tendency to have really rounded backs. We just kind of slouch in our chairs. And that exercise, if you perform that on a regular basis, it'll also help correct some of your posture things as well. So that's my last pick to really round it out. I wanted to get some variety there in at the end. But band pull aparts rounds out my draft.
That's a good pick. That's probably one of my favorite upper back traps. That's a good pick in general. And the fact you got it 501 is pretty impressive. I'm going to go with a similar kind of setup. So we kind of we get focus on like vertical pulls, horizontal pulls, most of the draft, and then kind of finish the workout with some kind of like trap work. I'm also going to do that with kettlebell shrugs. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, kettlebells, what the heck? I really like these for shrugs. The main reason
CrossFit.
being how the weight's loaded is different than a barbell because it's hanging under your handle. And you can really like focus on the contraction and then the slow decline and kind of really work your traps, where if you did like a barbell or a dumbbell, especially a barbell, I feel like people think they need to load it too heavy, and then you can't work on that contraction, that slow control. I think your traps, you kind of need that slow contraction and that kind of that time under tension to help really develop them. And I really like kettlebells right there. My favorite is honestly band pull aparts, or like face pulls, something like that, some similar. But since you took that at the 501, I'm going to go with the kettlebell shrugs.
Yeah, I'm kind of mad that I didn't throw any shrugs on my list. I thought about it, but I didn't really consider it part of the true back muscle area, even though they really are. So that's kind of silly on my part. I guess with the deadlift, you hit your traps pretty heavy with that as well. So why don't you summarize what you had for your draft, and I'll do mine, and we'll let the good people decide who had the better draft.
Yep. So the number one draft here we got going is the bent over row, lat pull down, seal row, single arm crossbody lat pull down, and then we finished it up with a sick trap pump, and we did kettlebell shrugs.
All right, and the far superior draft belongs to me, obviously. And with the first pick, I went with the deadlift to start off the workout. Then you jump into pull-ups or chin-ups, kind of rotate those in and out, then to pendlay rows, and we finish up with a hammer row and band pull-aparts. So that's my draft. Guys, please let us know, guys and gals, please let us know what you think of these workouts that we put together. Tell us who had the better draft, who had the sicker pump with these workouts. We're going to be posting a little workout video for each of these in a few weeks, but you let us know who had it better. And yeah, that's all we got today, guys.
Yeah. Or even too is if you would take a different lift higher, or if you would add a different lift in the draft. It's kind of fun to see how people rank certain movements. Just create some dialogue and conversation on the comment board. But other than that, as always, remember, no excuses,
no regrets. See ya.